This week, let's talk about sex. Life after Tumblr for the not safe for work category.
Then dating. Inside Bumble's Sleazy HQ.
And new sex toys in tech. I'm Steve Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward.
I'm Alexa Scordato. Let's launch.
Hey, so Alexa, this was your idea. You said last week, kind of in passing, hey, we should do a show about sex on the web. And I was like working on the rundown. I'm like, there's lots going on. There's lawsuits. There's all kinds of complications. So this is a three-part show. We could do dating sites alone.
I'm
as a
surprised
whole.
this hasn't been done because there is that song that says the internet is for porn after all. So yeah, this is not really new.
Yeah, and by the way, as much as we're going to talk about things ending and things beginning, nothing's really going away, as we'll get to in a minute. But okay, three things. We have three chapters today. Sex issues online, then dating sites and the politics of dating sites, and then finally sex, tech, and toys. And before we get started, a huge thank you to our friends at IEEE Spectrum, which provided us with an article for today's show in chapter 3, and also is just a great partner, and we love having Glenn on the show. And it's kind of a shame he's not on this one because I know he'd have a lot to say, but we will probably have him next week. So let's just start at the top with the headline that I read that said Imgur will no longer power the not safe for work content for Reddit. That was what kind of drew me into this topic.
Yeah.
Is that a surprise?
It's not a surprise. I mean, it definitely goes along sort of the Tumblr banning porn sites route. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's a very polarizing thing to talk about, whether not safe for work content is risky for business or is actually great for business.
Well, I'll answer that question because I think we can answer that with a fairly targeted answer. It's great for traffic.
Yes.
And probably bad for business.
Okay, that's fair. Yes.
And in fact, as I was researching the show, I was thinking back to the early days of AOL, which presented itself as this absolutely squeaky clean kind of like golly American online thing. But in fact, the bulk of the interest in it was those really, really racy chat rooms.
Right.
And that evolved, right? And then, I mean, maybe we should just kind of recap everything I say is going to have like double entendre based in, I don't even mean to, but like the rise and fall of Tumblr, if you will. So Tumblr was a wide open platform and then sold to Yahoo, and then Yahoo sold to AOL, and then AOL sold to Verizon.
And then got bought by Automatic.
Well, first Verizon, I think essentially said, I'm trying to remember, was it AOL that banned sex on Tumblr first? I think it was AOL.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Verizon was like, why do we own this? Like, and to the point about what's good for business or bad for business. So Tumblr sold for $1 billion and then sold out of Verizon for, no one quite knows, 10 million.
Speculatively, like some people were like, wow, this is like a mortgage.
Yeah, right. Now, interestingly enough, WordPress and Automatic, had an opportunity to say, yeah, we're going to roll back that rule, and they didn't.
No. But then they also got funding from Salesforce, and so if we stay along the bad for business route, that was probably the right call.
So I love Automatic. I love what they've done with WordPress. I think it's incredibly impressive, and I love Matt Mullenweg. But there were a lot of people that thought he was going to be more, again, open-minded. But that's not what I mean exactly. But I think he probably made the right decision, in part because there are other places to go, right? I mean,
yeah. speaking of which, I mean, it's safe to say every single platform that emerges in popularity will always draw not safe for work content because people are people, right? And sex is relevant to most humans, it's of interest. And so, you can look at uh, Instagram, Snapchat, right? Examples of places where adult communities have emerged, which
But there is now a battle going on, which I only moderately understand, between porn stars and Instagram. Um, and I read it twice. This is an article from BuzzFeed News, and I couldn't quite understand what the battle. I mean, is it just imagery, or is it sex workers using Instagram as a marketing platform? I couldn't quite figure out what the outcome would be.
I think there's so many things to kind of pull apart here. I think when it comes to adult workers, porn, what is considered pornographic versus just artistic self-expression. I mean, there's so many arguments for both sides, and so I think without getting into it, I think what it boils down to is this idea of um, really defining that line. Um, what is erotica? What is art? What is porn? Not safe for work.
Yeah, I mean, Craigslist went through a whole issue about people essentially using Craigslist as a dating site, and then it became a porn site, and then it
And it's like
became a
adult trafficking and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They seem to have been able to dial that down. I don't know, because I didn't ever participate in that community. I don't think I noticed it going away, but I don't know how they did that exactly. But it's really not. The other thing is, it's not really an image site, right? It's mostly a marketing site.
Right.
So I think I think that for Instagram, the internal decision they've made is really easy, which is they want to be, family friendly. So here's a quote from uh, one of their spokespeople. It says, "Our nudity policies have become more nuanced over time." What does that mean?
And that means nothing.
It means
It
nothing.
means nothing.
Yeah, I think that's right. Uh, uh, well, but to your point, art when you see it, and pornography when you see it. The problem is an algorithm doesn't have that level of sophistication. Say, that looks artistic. I think we'll leave that up. Yeah, that looks pornographic. I think we'll take that down. So the easy answer is to teach the algorithm what certain body parts look like, and just say, if we see those body parts, take it down.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't pull it up in time, but I've seen instances too where male photographers have posted imagery that is, pretty racy, and women maybe like just posting a selfie of themselves, you know, after getting out of the shower, and that content has been taken down. And so some critics have just said Instagram is biased towards men. If a man is the person who is capturing the image of the woman and posting it, then it's art. Whereas if it is the woman who is posting it of herself, then it's porn.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go with that, because it some of it comes down to men and women and what their objectives are, and it's complicated. But you know, net, when you read the Instagram article, did you come away feeling like they were threading the needle carefully, or they were just being kind of um, uh, heavy-handed and foolish?
I mean, I thought I would get away with 1 week not shitting on Facebook, but here I go again. It's just another example of just like wishy-washy policy, and Facebook just like kind of waving its hand and not actually being um, clear and thoughtful about how it wants to regulate a platform.
So again, bad for me maybe, but like, wouldn't the easy answer just be no nudity? We're family friendly. Period. Full stop. The end. Wouldn't what would be the downside of that?
Then it's like, but then they get into, well, what is it all nudity? Like, what about people with bathing suits at the beach? Like it's so hard to actually draw the line, and then it creates issues around this, how to scale the moderation around it. I mean, it's complicated.
Okay, I guess I don't know. I think I mean, the truth is we should have done a whole episode just on sex workers and the web because people, trying to find where the appropriate place is to market your services and not end up getting, kind of constantly knocked off of one platform or another is probably a
So
platform.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should parking lot that, but definitely revisit it in a future episode.
All right. So let's jump to the Pornhub controversy because that one I think is kind of black and white.
So black and
Um,
white.
yeah. Right.
So girls do porn. It was like discovered that it was, adult trafficking, and Pornhub did not really respond, I think, soon or soon enough, right? They had to wait for the federal indictment for them to
Yeah.
take it down. And it's just like, I think you just have to err on the side of, it's like if in the real, if I guess legally it's like, oh, guilty, not guilty until innocent. I'd say in online scenarios, when it comes to bad behavior, you should probably just err on the side of like take it down, remove it until it's cleared up.
All right. So let's play the game. You've been in plenty of conference rooms, and so have I. How did the meeting go? Where someone at Pornhub said, "Huh, look, 22 women have filed suit against, girls do porn, but we're gonna leave them up because of why? Like what? Like what?
Because of whatever connections they had to the producers of the show, who either had a reputation, who have some type, like, you just have to follow the money, and wherever you follow the money, there's always an answer.
So you think it's their buddies and the girls do porn guys said to the Pornhub guy, and by the way, I said guy on purpose, like, hey, these claims are bullshit. We're gonna win. Don't punish us. We need the traffic. Like,
Sure, yeah. And it's like just 22 women is not enough of a tipping point. At least I haven't seen that evidence of that being enough for people to do anything. How many women had to come forward before Bill
Bill
Cosby had
Cosby.
justice,
Yeah, yeah.
Harvey Weinstein, Donald Trump? I mean, like it's super sad, Steve. Like 22 women is not enough to take down men in positions of power. Period.
I have to say, I thought the Cosby women as a community were so powerful and so clearly knew what had happened. There was no quibbling about the events, and I just, I mean, I, I remember screaming at the TV. I think they were all on 60 Minutes together, and like they had bleachers set up with 3 rows of women.
Hmm.
Um, so all right, so then I know nothing about Pornhub the company. I don't I didn't read in deep enough to find out who the founder is or the CEO and what their revenue model is or any of that stuff.
It's
So,
not one of my like frequently trafficked Crunchbase sites or
but
profiles.
but theoretically, I guess it's making money. Otherwise, I mean, it is the I think I read it's one of the top trafficked sites in the U.S. There was a
Probably
number
in
I
the
saw.
world. Yeah.
Um, all right. So as we're going through our list, um, we think Instagram is wrong. We think Pornhub is wrong. Um, just kind of clipping along. Um, when you read the Tumblr "Not Safe for Work" story, the one thing that I thought was interesting, if you got below the fold and read into the article, was there's a whole bunch of companies that have spun up sites essentially to be Tumblr 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea those sites existed, and it's cool. I mean, they saw an opportunity and they took advantage of it. But I think there are a few things that are interesting. Like one, what is the longevity of these sites? How much work do these content creators have to put in to basically rebuilding their audience on new platforms? And I guess given how segmented that space is now, given the number of sites, um, what does that just mean for the producers of the content?
So like new Tumblr opened in December 16 of 2018 and now has 200,000 users. Said where is it? Dean Abramson, who essentially said, here's the quote. It's a good quote. I knew Tumblr wasn't that complicated, says Dean Abramson. This is in Fast Company. He said, I said, we could rebuild Tumblr in what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And for the front end, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, why not? It's just code, right?
I wonder if that's true. I wonder if you can really knock off. You probably can at this point. Uh, it was probably way harder to build when it launched.
I mean, the challenge, the biggest tech challenge with these sites is not in the design or how to build the product. It's actually when it scales, right? How to maintain the servers, the uptime, the speed, how to moderate the communities, and just deal for the sort of exponential growth of a social network.
Does AWS care if you put porn on their servers?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Because you gotta get a hosting company that wants to. Uh, and then there's another one that Fast Company listed called ShareSome, which
Hmm.
I'd never heard of either. Has kind of an
Yeah,
interesting business.
I wasn't I was not in the target of internet user trying to find Tumblr and not safe for work alternatives.
I'm not gonna lie. I researched for this podcast, but I did not type those sites into Google. I did.
Yeah, I no,
Uh,
I actually didn't either.
so here we are talking about two Tumblr replacements, neither of which Alexa or I have looked at. But but but
They're there if
you
you're curious.
you fine listeners, this is your opportunity to do a little bit of legwork for this fine podcast, and then you can research these sites for us, and then you can tweet us. I'm at Magnify Media. Alexa
At
is of course
Alexa.
at Alexa because she was early and smart. By the way, someday someone's going to buy that from you for $1 million.
I hope it's Google.
Well, that would be funny.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody tweets out a complaint about Alexa, then,
Google responds.
by the way, Siri should buy at Alexa.
Yeah, Siri, like literally,
Google doesn't really have a character, does it?
no, it's just home, which is weird
At
and
Google,
not fun. At Google, yeah.
I, hey Google, yeah, I don't. I think I actually got Google Home and returned it in part because I felt so weird saying that.
Yeah.
Hey Google,
What isn't
are
it
you?
better bossing around Google than bossing me around? It's so funny. My tweets, Twitter has become so unusable for me because it's a lot of the time it's people who are angry at their devices. So it'll be like, I just told at Alexa to shut the heck up, and it did. And I'm like, I don't want to wake up to that.
So you get to respond by going, "Hey, it's Alexa here, not the device in your house."
You're right, right.
Oh wait, hold on, wait. We could build a business. There should be a business around at Alexa, like tweet at Alexa something you want your house to do, and what could we like steal away from Amazon? That like that sorry, not today's podcast. Moving back to where we were. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about Match.
Yes.
So
Oldie but a goodie.
Match is a roll up of all these dating sites. It's the Barry Diller dating roll up, right? And what do they own? OkCupid, Tinder, Match.com, and other stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
IAC is huge. Yeah.
right. So why did they get sued? The FTC sued them. That it's suing Match because of I didn't understand fake emails they were sending out.
I think it's a basically if Facebook inflated video traffic, then Match inflated sort of platform engagement.
So you post on Match, and then a fake avatar that's kind of attractive reaches out to you and says, "Hey, glad you're here." And
It
and
doesn't even
taunts you to.
necessarily have to be as overt as that. It's just like when you're, if you picture the experience, I know you haven't, you've been with Pam forever, and so online dating is not uh, something
Not a
you're
thing.
familiar with. But
No.
when you're on these dating sites, um, you know, you're either being proactive in sending messages or you're scrolling through profiles. And so, to get signals in your email that say people are looking at your profile or people are interested in you, or here's a person who you might like, or you and this person are a great match. Again, it doesn't even have to be as overt as like, here's this person who is very attractive to you. And it could really just be as it could it sort of be as lightweight as like any kind of re-engagement email.
So you mean like when you go to a hotel booking site and you're looking at a room and it says only 3 rooms left at this price, and you get all panicky and you rent it and you buy it,
Yeah,
even though probably there's 30 rooms and they're just making shit up.
right. And so, and the idea that there are fake profiles on there is also really deceiving because you're spending time, right? It's like imagine if you were on Amazon, and you're looking at the deals of the day and I don't know, say 30% of the products that you're looking at don't actually exist. What a waste of time. So disrespectful to the user.
So I'll read a little bit from the Forbes.com article. The FTC complaint accuses Match Group of knowingly using, quote, deceptive or unfair practices to induce consumers to subscribe to Match.com and to keep them subscribed. The lawsuit details how Match.com users were messaged by fraudulent accounts. The company then allegedly led consumers to believe that the communications were from real romantic interests, using the overtures to encourage consumers to pay for subscriptions. Oh, that's creepy.
That's the
Really?
worst part is like it was used to get people to pay. And so it wasn't even just about like engagement, like, hey, you should sign in because we haven't seen you in a few weeks. It was taking it over the edge and saying like whip out your credit card so that, this becomes real for you.
So, so it was literally robots hitting you up and telling you you're sexy and attractive and they'd like to connect with you when you're literally, that's just, it's wrong on so many levels. It's like
Yeah.
it's playing against people's extraordinary weaknesses that they want to be loved and interested in and attractive. That's just really, I mean, you know,
I was actually
that's
thinking about what would be worse if they had the engineers program the emails, or if there was this really, really awful group of people in the email marketing team who actually then had to like make these emails and curate the content by hand and then hit the send button.
yeah. I think either is terrible,
Either is terrible.
but I mean, it's essentially you're right though. It's just a marketing strategy, right? I
Yeah.
mean, um, all right. So let's jump ahead because that's too depressing. And I think, I mean, the problem is what's going to happen right at the end of the lawsuit.
It's going to be minimal
Match
relative.
is going to settle and write a
Yeah.
check, and it's going to go away. I mean,
Yep.
like, so
There's no
so
like
if
there are no real ramifications anymore for bad business online. At least that's
no,
the way things are trending.
so if it generated for Match, $1 million in new business, and the fine is 200,000, that's like the only way it would be a painful outcome is if the fine was more than the new business generated.
Like $2 million where it was really painful to the business, and then the people who got affected were paid paid back and some.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to speak to the FTC and tell them that's what I want to happen. Um, all right. So last but not least, we got to talk a little bit. There's 2 more articles we got to talk about. We got to talk about the Bumble owner HQ article, which again, maybe we tried to take too big a bite out of this topic, but that alone, I just found. I always thought Bumble was the good site. It was the woman-owned, woman-conceived, women first, women make the first move, all that. Like I thought Bumble was the one that wasn't creepy and male-dominated.
Yeah, but it's usually rarely like a woman operating on her own. And so, again, follow the money, Steve.
All right, so for listeners who don't know the Bumble story, the woman who is the co-founder of Bumble left Tinder, said that Tinder was creepy, sued Tinder. They never really released a number, but we think it was got $1 million. And somebody who probably has since gotten fired at IAC didn't put into the $1 million settlement some kind of a non-compete. So she literally took the $1 million and said, I'm going to start a dating site that's fair to women. But then she partnered with a Russian oligarch to
Yeah.
fund the thing. I mean,
And
that's kind of
Andrei Andreev, I think this is how you say his name. And
kind of a
he also created Badu, which I've never used. Have you?
no,
Yeah,
but it's
Badoo. But
but
it's
it's
huge,
huge.
like
Yeah,
significantly bigger than Bumble.
and Badu is also a dating site.
I never thought of it as a dating site. My understanding is it's like location based and it would allow you to like almost go into like a location based almost like chat room kind of thing. So like if you were in the middle of Times Square and you could sort of be in New York City and talk to New Yorkers. But it's
Oh, that's
the
so
chart
much
in
sounds
the
like a hookup site. I'm sorry.
yeah, I mean
Like,
think about like a chat roulette but not as visual and like in an app.
yeah, but once you put a, a GPS location, you just, I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
So yeah. So the chart in the Forbes article, it has Tinder being the largest, with 287 million downloads, and then Badoo second to it with 221, and then Bumble just has 32 million.
All right, let's save Badu for another day, with the caveat being that based on the numbers you just put out there, it's obviously a hookup site. Sorry,
Yeah.
they're not talking about crochet and and knitting and puppies. Anyway, maybe they are, but all right, but what I guess I didn't understand was, first of all, how Bumble got to be so dark. I understood that the money came from this kind of shady Russian oligarch, but I and they kind of laid out that the founder, whose name I need to remember because it's got a bunch of hyphens in it. Where is it?
Oh, Whitney Wolf
Wolf,
Heard.
Wolf Herd. Yes, the Whitney Wolf Herd ended up with 20%.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean
which
it's I again, given the deal structure, it's like and the context, like the story plays out more commonly than you'd think in the sense that it's like a woman's wronged, she has an agenda to break out, prove prove her old team wrong and say that she doesn't need them, but then simultaneously has a hard time raising money on her own. So she has to find money from an investor. Someone believes in her. And then, you just make lots of trade-offs to basically get your dream off the ground. And as a result of that, you're just towing this line where it's like how much are you going to sell out and how much are you going to relinquish control over your business because you really need something that you can't have on your own. And often that's money.
So I listened to the last episode of Startup, the podcast Startup,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Oh, about the gimlet?
about the Gimlet sale
Yeah.
to Spotify. Without saying much about it because we don't have the time, I will only say that if you're in startup land, it's worth reading as or listening to as much as anything else because of what is left unsaid. It's
Yeah.
pretty emotional. It was having been through that a couple of times. I found it a little hard to listen to.
Yeah.
Um, it was
Yeah.
pretty
So I think
intense.
I think that's sort of what might have happened here. I
Yeah.
mean, way more complicated, I think, just in terms of all of the back and forth, the international travel, the, you know, dealing with a Russian billionaire. I don't know. It's like, it's just really funny. It's like, why is everything pointing back to Russia?
Yeah, it does seem like Russian billionaire is the punchline of a lot of jokes these days. All right, so last story, and then we are out of time. Is this IEEE story about how and why companies will engineer your emotions, and the booming sector of something I'd never heard of called affective computing, not E with an A, but with an A, not with an E, relies on collecting massive amounts of behavioral and emotional data. Did not know about this.
I had not heard about that term specifically, but behavioral analytics is fairly common in product development. Like if you have ever used tools like Mixpanel or Amplitude, they're touted as behavioral analytics platforms. It's the emotional call out, the emotional engagement component of this that was a little bit new to me.
So I was trying to figure out how that would play in the dating world. Like,
Yeah. So, I mean, you can imagine that you go through a really bad breakup and you might be angry. And so it's like understanding the motivation of a user when designing a product experience. I mean, you can do a lot with that. If I know someone is logging into my product because they're angry or sad, like they're so vulnerable, right? So like the content I could serve up or the ways I could get them hooked, like you're using someone's emotional state and their vulnerability to your advantage. And this is me, like I'm not saying I am an advocate of this, but I'm just saying that it's when thinking about product design and thinking about user experiences on a platform, knowing the emotions of a user is totally it's powerful.
all right, I'm gonna have to go and soak my head in a bucket of ice water for a little bit after that.
With facial recognition software, you can do this now. It's like there's a lot here.
All right, we are out of time. That was an intense roller
There's
coaster.
too
So
much, Steve. We could have done like five different
we'll
episodes
we'll
in this.
we will return to dating and do a deeper dive into the dating space and all of its complexity in a future episode. But next week, you can't miss next week's show. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, except to say it is our 100th episode,
Whoa. Da,
the
da,
big
da.
100. And so we're going to have a cake, we're going to have candles, and a big surprise. And I'm not telling anyone what it
It's
is.
definitely Mark Zuckerberg on the show. Special guest. Stay tuned.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.